Oikein hyvää huomenta. Tervetuloa markkinointikollektiivin pariin Aamukahviseuraan. Mun nimi on Marika markkinointikollektiivin tuotannosta ja täällä ylärivissä on tänä aamuna ilo olla yhdessä kollegani Liinan kanssa ja aamun vieraamme on myös täällä. Good morning Alison Morrison Vapa Medialta. Olisi kiva, jos huikkaatte tuonne chattiin vaikka, että miten teidän aamu on alkanut. Lisäksi huikkaan täältä muistutusta voit ottaa vaikka tuonne välilehteen kurkkauksen kollektiivin tulevista velotuksittomista tapahtumista ja koulutuksista. Niitä on koottu tuonne meidän sivulle useampiakin. Mutta sitten ainakin yksi oman tiistai-aamuni tärkeimmistä hetkistä, nimittäin Aamukahviseuran epärelevantti kysymys. So Alison, every morning we have an irrelevant question here in Morning Coffee Club. You can choose, this morning you can choose your favorite phrase. You can see it from the polls. What's your favorite phrase that suits for you today? I think I will go today. Failure is success in progress. How about Liina?
That sort of describes me every day, but today I wanna say think big.
How about Alison? What do you choose today?
I like remember why you started. I think that's a good reflective, empowering question for today.
Yeah, sounds good. So as you see, today we are going to have the talk in English, but please feel free to use Finnish, English, whatever language suits for you on the chat. Give questions, please comment, and we can try to translate your ideas through the show. But please, Liina, go ahead.
Thank you, Marika. So, you said, remember why you started, and that sort of is a good beginning to our morning. So we have here Alison Morrison from Vapa Media, strategy director, and you know content marketing like your own pockets, and you know where content marketing started, and today you will sort of tell us where it's going, what's happening in content marketing. But before we start, welcome and tell a bit about yourself and Vapa Media so our audience gets to know you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Alison, and I have been working in different agencies, in marketing, in content creation, in copywriting, in social media management, in content design, in content strategy, brand strategy, so a whole range of the marketing mix now for over 10 years. I've been working in Finland for about seven and a half years. As you can probably tell, I'm not originally from Finland, I'm from the UK. And I moved to Helsinki, about 7 years ago, and have loved living and working here. And I think I'm very passionate about the power of content and the creativity, the possibilities around content, and how just we've seen kind of this whole scene explode in the last 10 to 12 years, which is where Vapa started. So they were the pioneers, I suppose, of content marketing in Finland when they were founded about 12 years ago. And so really it's kind of our passion and core to do marketing activities and marketing strategy. Really, we kind of describe it as fueled by content. And so it's kind of my pleasure today to share kind of 3 shifts that I've seen, or that we see and discuss internally a lot in content marketing, just as kind of thought starters. There's some like practical things, but a lot of it is also, I suppose, encouraging and inspiring content teams, marketing teams, social media teams, whatever sphere you're working in within your business, to have conversations around these shifts, what it means for you, how it inspires you, and how you see that your role really fits into the bigger picture of building the brand and the business. So
that sounds amazing. So let's get straight to the point. So how has content marketing changed, and how does this change actually affect our brands?
Well, I'm going to share 3 shifts, and I'm kind of going to start with, I've already kind of tapped into a bit my personal passion and vision for content marketing, but I don't know if you know Gary Vee, but he always has a more passionate, slightly aggressive way of putting these things. And so he was kind of saying at one of his conferences that the number 1 variable of growing your business that's practical, achievable, doable is how serious you take making content on the internet. And I think it sounds kind of obvious, but I really love that he underlined kind of the seriousness of how we take it, because I think that's one of the biggest shifts as what has been seen as, okay, so we have these social media channels and how should we've been figuring out and acclimatizing to the use of them and what should we do and what should we do with email and website and things. Now I really see that, and I really believe that content marketing and just content creation in general is at the forefront of marketing. It's kind of the pioneering edge. It's a very exciting, interesting space. And I think it's a real differentiator for brands and businesses, as he was kind of saying here. And one example that I wanted to share right at the top to kind of inspire us about the possibilities is a business that's kind of been built on one of the fundamental cornerstones of content marketing, which is email. I don't know if you, well, I'm sure everyone here knows the brand Goop. Love it or hate it, it's a lifestyle wellness phenomenon. And it started kind of in 2008 with Gwyneth Paltrow basically launching an email newsletter from her kitchen, where she was talking about baking cookies to her friends. And since then, so she launched in 2008, already within a year, she had 150,000 subscribers. And then in 10 years, she had 8 million subscribers to her email. And it's just an incredible story that was built on this small passion of hers and gathering like a community of people interested around these topics that she was just sharing from her life. And ultimately, the main channel was email. And this is what it looked like. This is what emails looked like back in 2008. This is what she would send out to people. And I think this quote really sums up like what is the story behind her success. And in beauty, this expert from Accenture is describing that storytelling is everything. So if you can tell a story that makes sense, there's no limit to what you can do. You can go into food, sport, anything. And I think that's kind of, I'd like to make that point that that's bigger about content marketing in general. Like if as a brand, you really know how to own your story, you can really take some interesting frontiers and content can take you there. So what we saw Goop doing, of course, she started with cookbooks, but then it went into beauty products and vitamins, and of course a magazine, the podcast, actually set up stores, created events, and then there was the famous kind of Netflix series. So really just starting from understanding her kind of fans and the interest groups and the community that she created around this newsletter, she really used that storyline to expand into a hugely successful business. Of course, she does products and everything as well. And so I think there you can see that content was a mechanism for huge business growth. And I just find her whole story very inspiring. And it kind of leads me to this first shift that I want to talk about, which is from always on to always building the brand. So I'm sure everyone here on the call has heard the term always on. And I'm not here to say that we shouldn't say it anymore or it's dead and gone, but I think it kind of puts us a bit of in a wrong mindset these days when it comes to content marketing. Because I think for content teams, it gives like a pressure to produce and to create content all the time. It can create a bit of noise, like we just have to have stuff to say and be present online all the time. And it really kind of leads to quantity over quality. I've worked with many teams over the years where the goal is like how many posts that you create or articles that you create a month, rather than what is the message or the quality or the value that you're delivering. And I think so this kind of framing hasn't been very helpful. So what I would say, what we were discussing here is like thinking about it in terms of always building the brand. So that every piece of content that you create is a kind of brand building effort, a piece of the jigsaw that helps to move your customer towards loyalty or buying or just building up the impression of the brand overall. And 3 keys to that, I think, is understanding like strategy, synergy, and stretch. So I'll just quickly talk about them, and then we can have a little pause. So strategy sounds obvious, but again, with the teams I've worked with over the years, people aren't clear on how their activities within content marketing ladder up to the overall brand and business goals. And I don't think that's because they just generally don't know, but I think it's a conversation that's not happening in turn, like within organizations, as to where is the business going and how is content going to contribute to those goals and helping them get there. And of course, different goals equals different strategy. So if overall as a company you are looking to reposition, then I think content can really help you see, are the audiences understanding where you're going? Are they being taken along at the same pace? Are you moving too fast? Are you moving too slowly? Just simply by seeing what is being discussed, what the kind of comments are on the post, what the engagement is, using these kind of metrics to build a bigger picture of what is happening with the brand and business, understanding the sentiment of those discussions, and I'm ultimately seeing if the repositioning is helping you grow. And then if you are attracting new audiences or wanting to go into thought leadership, then there's different things that you can then do, different tactics or ways of measuring how is the content helping the business overall achieve those goals. So I think often the goals that we can work with clients, they all tend to be the same. Like we want to engage or we want to reach a certain target, etc. And I think there needs to be kind of a bigger thinking of like, so what are we contributing to the overall business and brand growth? And I think that just takes a bit more internal conversation and synergy, which is the next point. So I really believe that content is what is bringing the brand to life. So this is where, brand and marketing and content and social teams need to really discuss, like, what's the narrative? What's the creative space that the content creators can really occupy? What's going to be really inspiring? And what's the next frontier that you want to push together? I think what Goop did was really use content as a experimental force to see what are the audience interested in, where can we push the brand to next, where can we kind of grow in terms of our storyline or our like interest groups, like how can we be more relevant to people. And I think content, like, it's such a kind of malleable tool to test those things out. So content can really take you to interesting places, and that's the kind of stretch part, that it can really be a gateway to new markets and audiences, new products. What Goop did would be create articles that seemed super niche, but actually there was a lot of interest in those products or in that area of health. And then so they saw, okay, so this is now an opening for us to look into this whole new area for our brand and develop products or events or discussion around this new aspect of health. So those are some of the things I think on a high level is more of like an attitude change or a mindset shift, that you're not in charge of just keeping the lights on of the brand and the business, but you're really in charge of actively building the brand along with everybody else in the company that's doing it in a way that I think is very exciting and experimental and pioneering. So that's the first shift that I just wanted to talk about. I'll take a drink of water because, as you can tell, my enthusiasm dries my throat out.
But that is a very good point. That it's not just about creating content; it's about creating what the content creates. So it's not just about like pushing different material in your channels. It's about creating something with the content. We actually asked our audience what they think about taking advantage of storytelling in their content. And 73% said that it's great, but it's really challenging. Do you think this is how it's easier just to push whatever?
Yeah, because I think we feel like storytelling always needs to be emotional, or we can't tell stories about very technical products, or we can't tell stories about, we need to really always also, what I see is we need to tell all the stories at once and show how they're all connected to each other within our business. Yeah. And I think what makes a story interesting, I think for me, is some kind of tension or a moment of decision. Like, I think some of the most interesting stories that businesses tell are the decisions, the crossroads that they came to. Why did we decide to focus on this thing within our business? Why are we focusing on this niche? Why did we create this product? Kind of the whys behind it, because it shows like this isn't just a kind of entity that, no, obviously no one believes it just exists on its own, but it's, you know, there's human beings behind it that are really sensing the direction of the business and the culture. And so I think storytelling doesn't have to be really emotional. It can just be about a very simple decision making. We could have done this and we decided to do this, or the passion behind it. So again, I think broadening our ideas of like what we mean by storytelling and what's interesting to people. Like, just ask yourself, like, is this interesting? That's the key question. So yeah.
Thank you. I think this was an inspiring discussion, because most of us really do find it challenging. So now let's just keep on doing and do our best job. Next shift, we are going to talk about growth. How what is the role of content and content marketing in growth? How do we get our business growing?
So I think I've now just talked about the bigger picture of so what do we need to think about in terms of setting up? I suppose it's more of a strategic perspective, like where is the business going? But then it's like, well, so what do I do? And I think the second shift is really more about where do you put your time and resources, because ultimately it comes down to, we have a certain limited amount of people and time and money, and there's so many options in terms of channels and content, and you know, there's just so much choice out there. So this shift, which is being discussed a lot, is I've called from loaned to owned. So this is thinking about, for a long time, of course, there's been this balance between going to where the people are. So let's go to the social media channels that are, let's go to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And now TikTok's open. Oh, and should we be on BeReal? And like, let's go to where our audiences are, which of course we still need to do. But I think the old way of thinking is of build it and they will come. Like, we'll just have a website and people will end up there. There needs to be a balance between understanding the roles of these different channels and the benefits of them. And I think I'm probably fair to say we've all lost a little bit of faith in social. When we think about the organic reach that we used to enjoy 10 years ago, now it's almost at zero. And, you know, there's been many discussions around Facebook and Meta, and you know, that's a whole other conversation. But even just the experience of like Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp going down for I think about 6 hours about a year ago, I think it really woke people up to, the data on the social media channels is great, but it's really like kind of loaned. Like, we don't own this data or these people. And so I think, and also, you know, as we're going to be seeing the phase out, or already seeing the phase out of third-party cookies, I think marketers are really seeing that we need to really refocus on building our own channels. And so this, once again, like, it's not rocket science. It's kind of it's all these cycles of like what's new and exciting, and then coming back to kind of the fundamentals. Fundamentally, like, the best channel in terms of ROI is email. Like, it's this in B2C and B2B, like, it's clearly the best return on investment. And everyone that's talking about big trends for 2022, they're saying you really need to focus on email, but not just email. It's kind of also your website, the articles that you produce, the blogs that you produce, the content design, the service design. Is your site easy to use? And then what other media are you producing? Maybe you do a podcast, or maybe you do a print media or whatever, and events. Like, how can you really make sure that your own space is doing the best job that it can, is really kind of as tuned up as we have learned that we can do with social? I think we spent a lot of time really fine-tuning the targeting and understanding social, and perhaps, I don't know, it's something to discuss in teams, like neglecting our own channels, where that's where a lot of the power is. When we think about, we own the data, we really have the focus of the people. I mean, I don't know how many emails you might receive in a day, even if it's 100. Compare that to scrolling through 100 pieces of content. You could do that in the blink of an eye. And so there's so much less competition in someone's emails box. It also helps to build loyalty. And as I already said, it's the best ROI. So really this point is kind of like focusing on if we all have limited time and resources, so where do you want to invest? And I would say it'll be worth relooking at like what investments you've done in email. So how are you building the email list? What are the ways that you're capturing the information of people? Like, is it through being really clear about, hey, do you want to sign up for our email? Or is it through a white paper that maybe is a really deep dive, and then the email isn't such a deep dive, and so that's why your open rate like isn't so great? Like, have you segmented? Are you cleaning up the email kind of list regularly? Have you created a content plan and messaging, or is it just kind of, let's just share links to whatever kind of content we've posted that month and hope that it's doing a good job? Do you have a campaign approach? There's loads of different ways you can run campaigns. And then, of course, there's always like A/B testing and things like the right time to send, which according to the industry is Tuesday and Thursday mornings. So I know that like it's not the sexiest media to look into, but I really feel like now we need to invest more time into our own channels, really making sure that they are working well as a well-oiled machine. And then social supplements, like that's where it's worth looking into. Where does most of your traffic come from? Is it coming from social? Is it coming from search? Or is it just coming like direct traffic? So again, a little bit of internal investigation as to what is working best for you is what I would advise. But really think about the potential that you have to build momentum and community, which is kind of the next thing I'll briefly touch on, through a medium like email. I think that's the last thing I want to say about that. Oh, 3 other quick things, but you ask a question in a minute. Yeah.
So we have a couple of questions here, actually more to do with the storytelling and the content, but let's take them. Mika is asking, should the narrative be coherent, and if so, for how long a time?
That's really interesting. So when we talk about narrative, I think I see narrative more as like a creative playing field. I don't know, like a kid's playground as a sense. So it's great if your brand team has written a brand narrative, and then you can dig into, okay, so how can we really zoom in on this aspect for a piece of content, and also really like zoom out to cover the whole thing. I'm not sure. I think it's quite a lot to expect from your audience to have a narrative that maps across like a whole year that they would actually follow, because you don't know how content is being served to them, unless you want to do it, for example, through email where you have more control, or through articles. So I look at terms of narratives in terms of kind of like what are the kind of macro and mini stories within our brand, and then what is resonating the most to then dive into. So don't try and kind of lock yourself into a year-long narrative where you have to tell a very clear story. I think experiment and see what resonates most when we think of narrative would be my first
thought. Here's another question from Riitta. I think we're all guilty of posting something not that relevant just to keep the channel alive. Would you say it's better not to post and wait until you have something relevant to post?
Thank you for using the word
to post or not to post.
The word guilty, Rita, because I find like content is often like this confessional of like, I don't know what I should do, or is this okay? I mean, it's weighing up. There's nothing kind of wrong with it. I don't think you're ruining your brand or damaging your brand by doing something like that. And I totally understand that internally you will have your different like business leads that want to post content. You have different product owners. Content teams, bless them, have to serve so many people internally. I really feel it can be quite political as to what you should and shouldn't post. So would I say that's better not to post? Honestly, it depends on the time. Like if you're spending days to create a piece of content that you feel like we're only going to get 4 likes on this and I'm just trying to put it out there for the sake of it, it's a huge cost. Like I think about the resources that you're investing. And one tool I would say that's quite helpful to kind of keep focus and really kind of as an internal tool, like, is this relevant? Is this what we want to say? Is a simple content ratio. So thinking about the different content like topics or types or subjects that you need to talk about, and having an idea of like for a month or a quarter, what emphasis do we want to put on each? And then you're able to, in a kind of like more subjective way, decide what should go out when, rather than having these kind of discussions and panics internally about what you should post. So I'd say it's not like a terrible thing to do, but for me, it's more about the time that and the internal resource that you're spending on that may not actually move the needle that much.
Yeah, and quickly, but just everyone, please note that we included Alison's LinkedIn profile. Click that and continue asking questions and the discussions there, because I know we have a limited time. But quickly, if you are dealing with engineers, do you have any ideas how to use emotions in our contents?
So they are interested in technical issues. I mean, I think it's the best thing to do is interview people ultimately to find out, okay, so what is actually happening? Like for everyone, especially now, there are going to be emotional and rational drivers of decision making. I think that's just the basics of how we make decisions. And many researchers say that we think we make rational decisions, but actually it's more emotional, and then we kind of backfill with rational logic. So I would say, like, talk to some of your engineers and understand, like, what are the pressures of their job? What are the like, is it simply just about pricing and like the technical specs over another company, or what is the dynamics like within their team? How is this product really going to solve more than kind of one issue? And I think that's kind of where some of the emotion comes out, when you understand this is a person in their job and there's more than just them. This is more than them just picking a tool. So that's just an initial thought, like talk to people to try and understand what their world is like. But it may not be of any benefit to bring an emotional layer. It could be differentiating in your industry. But yeah, explore it with people that buy your products. Talk to your salespeople or the current customers and see, like, what is their world like.
Yes, thank you. Let's go to the last shift. We are going to talk about brand community.
Yes, so I'm going to have to skip this. Sorry, you'll never know what I had to say about that. Audiences to communities. So this is a very simple idea. This is a great quote from the New York Times, that in the digital era, we are really focusing on content, community, and conversation. Like, really, like, remember that that's what we're focusing on. So audience, the term audience, it's about performing, it's about broadcasting, it's about me just telling you something and you kind of going away and reacting, and I have no idea. Communities it kind of really is a buzzword at the moment. And about building communities, there's a few different ways. You can think about your brand, business, or product's role, like its pre-existing role in culture. There will be people that may have adopted your product, your brand, into a subculture that you don't really have any control of. It's just happening. That's really interesting to explore, I think, about what's going on there. And I have a great case that I can share the link to that shows how Wrangler Jeans did something amazing around that. There might be user-led communities. So especially if you have a product, like a software product, people are interacting with it every day. Maybe there are things that they want to share with the community. This is how I'm using it. I have questions about this. They may pre-exist also. And then there's the final step of actually, like, what does a branded community look like? Here are some very quick examples of what this could be. Sephora, they have this beauty insider. It's very sleek, probably quite expensive to set up. And I think this is probably, yeah, for them and their brand, this works perfectly. But then Nordstrom, it's a high-end kind of fashion retailer, and they have just set up a Reddit thread so people can just ask questions. It's very low-key, and it's a place where people are asking questions of one another. And I don't think it's actually run by them. It's run by kind of fans of the brand or people that work for Nordstrom. Notion is a project management tool. And I think what they saw is a combination of both. They saw that people have a lot of questions and want to share about how they use the tool. So they facilitated through a ton of different channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, Reddit, Twitter, Discord, these ways that people can come together and discuss and share ideas. But I don't think it's actually kind of really facilitated so much by them. And then Airbnb, they've recognized that there are hosts that want to share ideas and stuff. So community is more about how can you gather people that are like-minded, might have things to share around the brand. So quick questions if you should set up a community, screenshot this and have a discussion internally. But I assume that time is moving on and there's so much more I'd love to discuss. But yeah, I think that's all I'm going to be able to share this morning.
Thank you so much, Alison. Please give some feedback on the poll side, and I'm here to tell you what we have on Morning Coffee Club next week. So next week on Morning Coffee Club. Nyt vaihdetaan suomeksi sen verran, että Aamukahviseurassa ensi viikolla puhutaan asiakaskokemuksesta brändin rakentamisen työkaluna, ja meillä on vieraana Marika Siniaalto Grapevineilta. Tulkaahan mukaan ja kurkatkaa tuolta kollektiivin sivuilta myös auki olevat pelillistämisen ja vastuullisuuden tilaisuuksien ilmoittautumiset, ja kurkatkaa myös account-based marketing -koulutuksen haku. Nyt vielä Liina ja Alison.
Yeah, and also note that sign up for Vapa's asiakastapahtuma. Be there, New School Content Marketing. I'm sure you will have a deep dive into all this discussion. This was just a quick preview of what is happening there. So please sign up and we'll all see there. Thank you so much, Alison. We asked the question, we asked the audience in the polls, did you get new insights to your day and new ideas? And over 90% say that they got at least a few, but most of them got many. So we are happy.
That's great. Thank you. And one quick thing, 50% of marketers feel like their desire for perfection is the biggest hurdle for content. So please don't let that weigh heavy on you. You don't have to be perfect when you put out your content. Experiment, have fun. And yeah, it's a really exciting space, and I'd be happy to talk with anyone more about this. So please contact me. And yeah, thanks so much for the time. It's been really fun.
Thank you so much. And this was a great finish for today. I love it. Thank you so much, Alison. And see you guys next week.
Bye.
Hauskaa päivää, tehkää hyviä sisältöjä ja nähdään jälleen. Moi moi!
Mm.